Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Another day, another show by BW Hotelier. Welcome to the second episode of this newest BWH series that we call the GM Show. This is the second show of the North. And the next 2 weeks, we will be hosting two shows in the West. Before we move down south, we move on to the East after that, Central, and then back to the North. This series we will be doing also a very, very special show, and that will be on the Northeast to bring some focus there. Northeast is most happening and it deserves the attention that we must give it. Having said that, today I'm delighted to be amongst some of the top shots of this hospitality industry, and they're all NCR based. A bit about the series, which I have mentioned in the last episode also. This show is going to be every Thursday, so block your 5 p.m. for the next 19 including this, at 5 p.m. Each episode will have a different subject, very interesting, very current, and very valid, which these luminaries will discuss. By the time we are done with the series, we would have brought to you over 150 of the finest moderators and speakers that our country can afford. Like I said, the format is region-based. The show will be relayed live on BW Hotelier online and our social media platforms. For post-viewing, also, you will be able to view these shows on the BW Hotelier online, our YouTube channel, and our social media. For any inquiries that you may have, please reach out to us at bwhotelier@businessworld.in. Let me repeat, at bwhotelier@businessworld.in. And also do follow our social media, a lot happening there. Without much ado, let us now get rolling with this latest show. And let me bring in the speakers and our moderator. Permit me to introduce to you my friend and an industry elder now. His hair gives them away. Satyajeet Krishnan. He's the area director, New Delhi, and the general manager for the Taj Mahal, New Delhi. We call it the Taj Mansingh. Satyajeet has spent close to 3 decades in the industry and all with the IHCL, the Indian Hotel Company Limited. He began his professional life at the Taj Mahal Hotel in Delhi 28 years ago, and he heads it today. And he's been heading it actually for the last few years. And what a turnaround. What an amazing job he's done there. He spent his formative years in hoteliering at this iconic hotel and subsequently worked across various celebrated hotels of the IHCL, such as the Taj West End, Bangalore, Taj Fort Agoda and Spa, Goa, Taj Palace in New Delhi. Satyajeet took over his current role as the captain of this flagship hotel in Delhi, post an enriching and successful 4-year tenure at the award-winning Rambagh Palace in Jaipur. As area director of New Delhi, Satyajeet oversees the much-loved Ambassador. Who doesn't know Ambassador? Sujan Singh Park, Khan Market. If you've been there, Ambassador is a great stop to be. And of course, that hotel which has just completed a year on the 10th, the Connaught in New Delhi. Right and bang next to the Shivaji Stadium. Watch a game there. Both these hotels are jewels of the IHCL's selections portfolio. Let me briefly introduce my dear friends who adorn the panel today as the speakers. Nitesh Gandhi is the cluster general manager for Rajasthan and the general manager for the JW Marriott at the Aerocity. Welcome, Nitesh. Satyajeet will give an introduction on all of them. Norton Pereira, new to NCR, but a strong hotelier. He's the area general manager and general manager of the Crown Plaza today in Gurgaon. I still call it Gurgaon. Varun Chhibber, they're both on the same highway. He's the complex general manager for the Leela Ambience Gurgaon hotels and residences, and the Leela Ambience Convention in New Delhi, which is CBD Shadra. Puneet Chaudhry, who's the one that we pulled out of Paschim Vihar, he heads the Radisson Blu as the general manager there. Rajesh Namby, a bit of a story with Rajesh Namby. BW Hotelier was launched by him when he was at the Leela in Chanakyapuri. So there's a lot of connect there. He's the general manager of the Lodhi. He's back to Delhi. Joyjit Chakravorty, he's the general manager of the Hilton Garden Inn, New Delhi at Saket. I shall now, time is always precious. I shall now hand the show over to Satyajeet to take it ahead from here. Over to you, Satyajeet.
Thank you, Bhuvanesh. You might have heard of a thing called premature graying. I hope you've heard of that concept. Thank you for the lovely introduction. And I suddenly feel, yeah, exactly. You grayed prematurely. You're only 30 years old, Bhuvanesh. But no, thank you for that very kind words. I suddenly feel very wise, being called an industry elder. The next 1 hour will tell us if that's true or not. Good evening, all. Good evening from a very smoky Delhi. I think there's one thing about India which we're all in agreement about, and that is that India loves to celebrate, and India likes to celebrate. And what better an example of that, of what's happening currently in Delhi. As I said, good evening from smoky Delhi. Was if there's one thing which is insulated from pollution and the winter and the cold is the big fat Indian wedding. Come whatever happens, the Indian weddings will happen. It brings a smile on various people's faces, and definitely the people on this panel are smiling year to year that the weddings are back. So were we missing the big fat Indian wedding? Yes, we definitely were. And I'm very glad to say we were. And the way the trend seems to be panning out, it seems as if the big fat weddings are definitely on the way back into our life. So that's great news. As I said, India loves to celebrate. And I have a little interesting statistic here, which I must share with all of you to give you a sense of why we're having this conversation and why we're having this discussion. How big really is this industry, or how big really is this entity called the Indian wedding? As per a recent survey, the size of this industry, of this wedding industry of India, is actually second to the US, and it's pegged at about $50 billion in terms of size. To be precise, India celebrates roughly about 10 million weddings per year. So that's the scale we're talking about. And that's why we have industry stalwarts on the panel, and look forward to talking to all of you. And for all of you tuning in, thank you for tuning in, and look forward to an interesting discussion. So let me begin by introducing my panelists. We have Nitesh Gandhi, who's the cluster general manager, as Bhuvanesh mentioned, for Rajasthan Hotels for the Marriott. He has the JW in Delhi. He's a seasoned hospitality professional with more than 2 decades of experience. Nitesh joined the Marriott in 2017 and achieved a revenue target of 300 crores, which was a benchmark in the year 2019. He also worked with his team to eliminate 20 million plastic water bottles at the hotel, and also worked towards helping the underprivileged, actively worked towards helping the underprivileged during the pandemic. These are some of the achievements under Nitesh's leadership. A little bit about his journey. He started his career as a management trainee at OCLD and then moved on within the company through various roles. He started out at the Oberoi Udaipur, Udaipur, was the food and beverage manager, and then went on to the Trident brand Rakurla, and then to the Oberoi. He's also worked with Four Seasons in Maldives and the Trident Gurgaon, which was erstwhile the Trident Hilton Gurgaon. So that is Nitesh for you. We also have with us Norton Pereira, area general manager and general manager of the Crown Plaza today in Gurgaon. Norton has a career which spans 2 decades. Is also getting to be an industry elder, but doesn't have any gray hair. Norton is a passionate hotelier, has led multiple teams and brands like the Hyatt, Starwood, Marriott, and IHG through his career. He heads 14 hotels for IHG currently, and also the general manager of the Crown Plaza Gurgaon, which is the flagship for the brand in India. In the last 20 years, Norton has held various leadership positions across the country, and also has been a pre-opening general manager. Moving on, we have Varun Chhibber with us, who's the complex general manager for the Leela Ambience Gurgaon Hotel and Residences and the Leela Ambience Convention Hotel, Delhi. Varun joined the team with close to 2 decades of experience. He led some of the finest hotels in the world. Prior to this, Varun was general manager of the Leela Ambience Convention Hotel, Delhi. Under his leadership, the hotel transitioned to one of the most preferred MICE and wedding destinations. That's one of the reasons why he's on the panel. Earlier on in his career, Varun also worked with various Oberoi properties across locations and also had a stint in the Maldives. Varun's in-depth knowledge of Delhi and the Delhi market, and combined with his business acumen and planning, equip him in positioning the hotel a notch above. Coming from a strong background of food and beverage, operations and marketing, Varun has a vision which is ideal for this award-winning hotel. My next colleague on the panel is Puneet Chaudhry, General Manager of the Radisson Blu, Paschim, Vihar. Puneet has a proven ability of being a multitasker and has worked in various hotels, including the ITC Welcome Hotel Vadodara, the Imperial New Delhi, the Radisson Blu Plaza Marina Hotel Connaught Place, and the Radisson Blu Plaza Hotel Delhi Airport. He presently heads the Radisson Blu Delhi. He has a keen eye on improving the image, focusing on profitability and on quality standards. Moving on, we have Rajesh Namby, General Manager of the Lodhi, New Delhi. Rajesh has been specializing in luxury hotels and resorts, has a rich experience spanning over 2 decades. He's been associated with renowned chains like the Leela, the Hyatt, the Hilton, and Indian Hotels Company Limited. His last assignment was General Manager of Leela Palace, Udaipur. Prior to that, he was a resident manager for the Leela in Chanakyapuri, the Leela Palace, Chanakyapuri. During Rajesh's 17 years association with the Leela Group, he's been an integral part of their culinary operations and played an instrumental role in transforming their food and beverage, introducing new standards of service and pioneering new dining experiences. At the Leela Palace, New Delhi, Rajesh spearheaded the launch of one of the most comprehensive culinary portfolios in the city, to much acclaim and success. And then we have Joyjit Chakravorty. Joyjit is General Manager for Hilton Garden in New Delhi, Saket. In June 2021, Joyjit joined the Hilton Garden as a property renowned for its location. He has over 21 years of experience in core hotel operations, including pre-opening and conversions, and has worked with numerous renowned hotel chains in India. His last stint was a Hotel Garden in Lucknow, where he was a general manager for 3 years and was decisive and instrumental in building a talented team and ensuring the team had an all-round performance. Hilton Garden in New Delhi, Saket has recently bagged an award, the TripAdvisor Travelers Award in 2021. So congratulations for that, Joyjit. Moving on to the discussion, as we started by saying, Indian weddings are an example of the celebration that this country is very famous for. But it's not just a celebration of a wedding; it's a joining together of families. It's a common bond. There are many aspects and many parts of what go into this Indian wedding. And of course, for us, what we're discussing here is the revenue standpoint. We've seen that it has been, as I mentioned earlier, a very huge industry and a big revenue generator. There are direct revenues, there is employment, both to, to hoteliers, to hotels, and to people who are supporting the wedding. The impact of the wedding on the top and bottom line of the hotel is immense. The change that we all have seen post the COVID era or the continuing pandemic, and that's something which we're going to talk about today, is how have the weddings as an entity, as a concept changed? How has sustainability come into play? How has responsible spending come into play? And what was a big fat wedding? If it's now a small niche wedding, is it still a big fat Indian wedding in another context? So I will go with my first question to you, Nitesh. And I'd like to ask you, how much have you missed the big fat Indian weddings over the last 2 years? More so in this current year, with the second wave, what has been the impact? When the first wave got over, we had a period where it was the right time of the year for us in Delhi in terms of being the season. We had a good season, or it was starting to become a good season, and then the second wave hit us. And obviously then a lot of things went awry. The second wave is now over, 100 crore vaccines have been done, and the wedding season is on. So how is it going for you? The last part of my question to you, Nitesh, is considering the contribution of the healthy contribution of the unhealthy big fat Indian wedding, what are the plans for holding this as a steady gain for you going forward? Nitesh.
Thank you, Satyajeet. It's interesting. Just before I came for this session, I was meeting 2 guests, and we closed 2 weddings for the second week of January. So those are the top meetings which kind of take up your time, and sure for all of us equally here. So if I go back to 2019, when we hit that big number, weddings out of a catering business was almost close to, I think, about 40% of catering business, which is banqueting business. And out of the group room nights, which is approximately, let's say, 25% of a total business, almost 7 to 8% was groups out of weddings. We primarily also focus extensively on all sorts of large corporate movements, international movements, which were far too many in 2019. Fast forward to after the pandemic hit us, last quarter, I think first quarter of this year, Jan to March, when the first wave subsided, we were again flushed with weddings. I think in many ways, like you rightly said, weddings is, of course, for guests and two families, the important part, but equally for the hotel, it's a very heavy investment that one has to make from a mental standpoint, because you're talking about relationships for a lifetime. And typically in our business, I think for all of us, once you do one wedding and the wedding goes off well, you get multiple referrals. So really not much marketing is required. At Marriott International, of course, 3 years back, we kind of came across this beautiful campaign called Shadi by Marriott, which institutionalized the entire wedding process across the hotels. And so much so that really got us an opportunity of getting the entire fraternity together. So we're talking about fashion designers coming on into the fold, large scale wedding organizers coming into the fold, food, caterers, expat chefs. So the entire level of Indian weddings, I think in Delhi as a market, Bombay as a market, Rajasthan as a market has gone to the fore. Contributions wise, like I said, it used to be a 40% used to be from weddings. Now the whole thing has completely shifted. So far for the year, almost 80% of our catering business that we see is because of weddings, thanks to the government notification, because only weddings are allowed pretty much up to 200 numbers. B2B meetings are allowed, but there are still offices yet to open. So weddings is keeping us phenomenally busy. In fact, next year, I was looking at the numbers, they're almost close to upwards of 65 SIA dates, which means straight away that many dates of weddings being blocked in. So one has to be on the feet. But I think what makes one venue preferable over the other is great service, is excellent food. I'm just talking about basics here. And of course, the entire experience of the wedding thing coming together. But what's really changed is COVID protocols, something which was missing earlier, but now is extremely, extremely serious. I'm sure all our hotels have got SOPs in place, upwards of 250 to 300 SOPs on how to deal with COVID functions, from taking thermometer readings, of course, of guests, but even the setup team which comes before and after the entire thing, entire events. Buying electrostatic sprayers, right? That was a big investment all of us had to make, making sure that after one group of guests check out of the wedding hall and before the second one comes, we sanitize the whole thing. So if you really ask me in terms of cost, and our profitability is probably gone down a bit. Of course, we've taken the rates, but we're putting much more efforts in being a preferable wedding destination. At the same time, Satyajeet, Delhi especially is also seeing a lot of freestanding venues come up, like just behind Varun's hotel. I was speaking the other day, the place called A Dot, and they do phenomenally well and amazing decor. So I think the freestanding wedding locations have also will, in the years to come, keep hoteliers on their toes to kind of be on up to date with our portfolio, with our offerings, because we can't be complacent with what we have. So weddings, the segment is here to stay. Weddings, we might call them unhealthy, but they still have extremely profitable margins. But the demands from our guests are going up, and rightfully so. There's a lot of pent-up demand, a lot of weddings which got cancelled in early 2020. We're also seeing, interestingly, I met this Panditji a few days back, along with the guest who had come to close the wedding. And he was openly saying, even though it's a non-SIA date, I can do some special processions and make it a SIA date. So all sorts of combinations are happening. We're seeing weddings for up to, as per the protocols, over 200 to 400 guests, to even smaller ones, guests of 5 and 10s, and saying, listen, we just held up, please do it. And we also kind of now catering to people's homes, because a lot of guests still want to do the weddings, procession in their farmhouses, in the safety of their homes. So it's all sorts of permutations going on. And this is the time to be extremely adept and nimble-footed, because multiple opportunities are coming our way and we have to kind of choose the best out of it. So yeah,
Great.
exciting times ahead.
Thank you, Nitesh. And this point you mentioned of Panditji is very interesting. It gave me an idea as I was listening to you. When business is low and when BOB looks low, maybe we get a few Panditjis on our side and get some SIA dates manufactured.
You'll be surprised the kind of creative accounting with the Panditjis have done, aligning stars, and people really, I think, are open with the idea that if you have a fair venue, also, like I said, 21st, 24th till 25th January, we all sold out. There are only X number of limited places, correct, right? So we have to, guests will have to look at alternate dates, which means great opportunities for all of us. But my only concern is that large congregations mean large amount of people coming together. Our focus on COVID protocols have to be at an all-time high right now. And I think as senior hoteliers, as respectable brands, we have to lead the charge in terms of COVID protocols and set an example for everyone to follow.
No, I agree with you. In fact, what you're saying leads me to my next question to Varun. Varun, good evening. The weddings are a social occasion, and we all know that. And numbers in any social occasion in India is never going to be bang on time, bang on dot. I mean, RSVPs is something which we're not the best at. So the numbers could go from 200 to a few thousand. How do we, I mean, when we say we're asking you, we're asking all of us, how do we protect, secure, and yet have, a happy, successful Indian wedding? Taking from what Nitesh said, that's a very critical point. How do we ensure that? What is your view on that, Varun?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. And Nitesh, thanks a ton. You half answered my question. But first of all, I'd like to just add a little bit to what Nitesh said about, creating auspicious dates. And in our hotel, we have seen at least 4 occasions wherein actually the wedlock happened at home, with only 15 odd people on an auspicious day. And then the family picked an absolutely open date for just celebration. So I think that is also a trend wherein a pandit is relevant too. The date is relevant as well. But with the, because there is a growing feeling that, we don't want a wedding to happen without the blessings of the dadas, dadis, nana, nanis, but they don't want to bring them into a hotel. True. So the little intimate wedding happens at a home or in a farmhouse, like Nitesh mentioned, and the big celebration can happen on any date or a convenient date in the hotel. So that's also a trend that we need to watch out and encash. Coming back to, safety, I think all of us, have become, champions in this. And the only thing that I think is working for us, and I'm sure is working for all of us on this panel, is being inclusive to the concept. And I think the more we treat it like rules and regulations, the lesser people follow it. The more we culturally draw them into it, the more we create ownership around it. I think the more we see inclusion of guests wanting to do it, the better the safety for everyone. Nitesh spoke about some equipment we all have invested in. I think more than that, there are also habits from our side as easy protocols. But in terms of encouragement to the guest, for example, a small thing, and I'm sure some of my colleagues have also done, that we did very nice, transparent Leela masks for the wedding. Because the ladies just simply wouldn't wear a mask, and the men too. So how do you still keep them safe? This was a small innovation that came from one of our banquet team members, and I think was really embraced by a lot of people. In terms of distancing, in terms of general, cordoning of eating areas. And even when the government says you can have 200 people eat indoors, you can still dissect them into smaller zones where only 20 or 25 people at one time are eating. So creating small zone within a big zone, using smart, barriers, whether through flora, fauna, or fabrics, but breaking these down. And I think some of these things are here to stay. I don't think this is just about, now or tomorrow or next year. I think some of these are really great habits that we need to imbibe. Also, for example, a lot of our intermediary, the planners who work with us, have become smarter with the time. So no more bus transfers. People come in smaller, kind of carriers. They get welcomed differently. I think wedding people have different zones they will get welcomed. The kits are distributed. No more crowding the lobby. So I think all these smart, inclusive steps are helping hotels become a better place. In terms of just picking on the free standalone spaces and great spaces, I think I have the biggest competition on the island I work on, which is the Ambience Island, and Ritz, Riviera, ADOT, and a couple of other, incredible places. I think one differentiator we can create as real hoteliers is actually on a step up on protocols, because as the gathering becomes larger and larger, it just is practically tougher to manage it. But I think 200 guests, or in future a little more, I think with some inclusivity, using our celebration studio as quasi-educative centers, show people, walk the talk. I think when we interact and our teams interact, wearing that mask, showing that protocol, we in fact encourage people. We have a video wherein people can get to see what the pre and post protocols of a banquet turnarounds are. And people quite appreciate that. I think it builds credibility on what happens before I come in and what happens after I leave.
Thank you.
So all these things coming together are helping.
Thank you. Thank you, Varun, for some very valid points and something which is on everyone's mind. How do we protect our staff and our guests? How do we protect our colleagues? Moving on to you, Puneet, I have now a different angle or a different aspect to look at. We've been talking about scale, we've been talking about size, we've been talking about how big this industry is. We also have a fact which we face today is that post the pandemic, businesses have been impacted, people have been impacted. Maybe the purse size is reduced in many cases, even in business families. Is there a case for creating packages that are affordable? We're talking affordable weddings here. We have of course, the whole concept of large weddings, but there are challenges now. So what are your views on that, Puneet, of what, if I may use the word, affordable weddings?
Good evening, gentlemen, and good evening, all the viewers. Yes, whilst the current generation, because of the internet revolution, has been overexposed to lifestyles, gadgets, and experiences, this with depleted source of income or no incremental income did give rise to humongous aspirations. In addition, the e-commerce websites which are offering host of products to window shop at their fingertips further added to the wish list. However, there was a need when the pandemic hit the human race, there was a need to create some very cost-effective packages. So customized packages were created by hotels as a measure to mitigate the sudden drop in revenues from the social segment. However, I feel aspirations and expectations of both grooms and brides and their families are very high when it comes to five-star hotels. In fact, many financially conscious brides, grooms, or their parents preferred to do the weddings in current COVID times because the social pressure of inviting the entire social circle is not there. They can formalize their wedding within the means and save on monies in these unprecedented times. So the demand for packages was on a rise during the peak of COVID. After the first wave, the standalone banquets are still closed. Five-star hotels were open. Even when the standalone banquets opened, guests still preferred to come to five-star hotels because of the safety aspects, because there is obviously 100% assurance that all five-star hotels would look after the safety protocols and follow the guidelines laid down. So during this time, there were capping restrictions on the total number of gatherings. The uncertainty of cancellation forced the client to look at more financially viable and flexible options. As on date, if I talk about what are we witnessing is that clients are not looking for a package deal, but look for more flexibility and considerations in case of any last minute amendments to the events.
So that gives them the opportunity to kind of reduce.
Yes, because it's unprecedented times. Suddenly the government rules change, the capping changes. They have to postpone their weddings, they have to cancel their weddings. So all that is happening. So recognizing this need, we had actually devised a very guest-centric refund policy where clients were fully refunded in case cancellations happen, unfortunate cancellations happen due to the pandemic. This actually created a lot of goodwill for the hotel, and when the time was right, these guests were happily rebooked our hotel with much more confidence and higher guest numbers as per government guidelines.
No, that's great. That's a very that's a agile thing to have done and work to your advantage, and that's I think good blueprint for all of us to kind of implement in our hotels too.
Yes.
Moving on to Rajesh. Rajesh, kind of a similar question. Moving on to Rajesh Namby. There obviously seems to be a case now for all-inclusive wedding. Like an all-inclusive wedding plan, which was done before, but now what are your views on whether we could create bundles and make it affordable and easier for families, where you throw in various aspects of a hotel stay, be it a room, be it, a post-wedding celebration, whatever. Have you in your hotel looked at that as a concept, Rajesh?
A very good evening to all of you. I was saying that, Lodhi is a very boutique property with limited room inventory and a limited banqueting facility. But yes, this actually kind of serves the purpose as a competition to most of the big boys in this panel with huge banqueting spaces and kind of trying to fill in. The only banqueting space that I have is an open air, beautiful lawn space where I can accommodate up to 200 people. A push comes to shove, maybe 300, not more than that, right? So it worked extremely well for us. To the movement of the restriction in terms of calling in people from outside for a salon service or for a foot massage or a bridal makeup and all stuff like that. Everything kind of minimized, even to the extent where there were restrictions on the event management team kind of moving in too many people in and around. So the hotel was actually delivering much more, and we learned actually more importantly, we learned the art of delivering much more than what we probably did a few years back, right? So there was a huge learning that way, and then of course it kind of churns back into revenues and stuff like that. Yes, all inclusive packages, as Mr. Krishnan, you said, has always been there, but it is just that, in today's world, it is in between, not today's world, not anymore. In between, yes, it did add a lot of value to the propositions.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thanks for your sharing your thoughts. And yes, you have a unique situation because you are like a standalone hotel, and that sometimes can also work as an advantage. And of course, where you're located. Moving on to you, Norton. Good evening, Norton. The next point I'm going to talk about and request for your views is a point which started with, of course, Nitesh and his friendly Panditji, and then Varun built on it about being adaptive. The question actually is about the fact that Muhurats may not be the way weddings are going to happen. Muhurat dates and Saya dates may not be the only way weddings will get solemnized now. People will have, and we've seen that in the past, and we saw the examples, moved away from that concept if need be. So the generation seems to be open to getting married anytime, anywhere. Do you have a plan specifically for this in terms of taking it forward as an offering to prospective clients?
Yeah. So thanks, Satyajeet, and good evening to everyone who's watching. So it is a new approach without question, because there's already a huge backlog of weddings which haven't been conducted over the 2 waves of the pandemic. While in principle, what I feel is the weddings will circle around a calendar which is pre-laid out the year before. However, the ability to host weddings beyond that, now that's a huge opportunity for us to maximize on that particular segment. The Shubh Muhurat wedding dates, these are rooted in deep belief, and the parents follow that. However, there's a slight change, especially with millennials. They seem to look at it differently. They want a date which suits the family and friends and themselves as well, especially with the work cycle thing that they work around. So now, to me, that's inspiring, because this generation is trying to strike a balance between their parents' beliefs and their own. So it's quite a change. Besides this, we've had other communities which have had weddings conducted through the year. That continues to happen, but I would still say the majority of traffic continues to flow through on these dates. What we do as a company and the hotels in my patch, if the host is ready to relocate a date, which is based on our convenience, we actually go ahead and try and sweeten the deal, because that's a win-win for both ends. And it has worked in the past. Yeah, we're going to push it hard again going forward. But like the other panelists said, it's about being agile, right? It's about flexing our style to match the current situation. That's my thoughts.
Thank you. No, thank you, Norton. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Moving on to you, Joyjit. As we all know, weddings are a sum total of many moving parts. There is the hotel aspect, there are various vendors, there are various suppliers. It is really like a production house. It's like a production. Now, we being the primary, so to speak, if I may say the word, the venue, the platform, etc. We as hoteliers, have you ever thought of cross-industry tie-ups or giving all these various suppliers as a one service offering, bundling them up? Have you ever done this before, Joyjit? And do you have any such plans where you kind of offer that to a prospective family as like a one-stop shop?
Mr. Krishnan, and good evening to all of you. Like all panelists have been saying so far, Indian weddings are very personalized. They are lifetime events. It's not only for the bride and the groom, but like what Varun said, for the nanas, for the nannies, for their friends, the relatives, everyone, and they all dream. It's an experience, and they all dream to accomplish this event, from fixing a date to the venue to the guest list to the decor arrangements. as per the rituals and customs. So it's a journey which all the elders, they enjoy doing. And with the current millennials getting wedlock, they already have a predefined choices from the world of Instagrams and Facebook and social medias, and what they want to do or what they want or how they want. So I personally don't believe in taking away this opportunity from them, but rather rather push it to, or rather keep the specialized jobs to the partners like the wedding planners, to show them customized ways of doing it. So if I were to give you an example of probably what's happening with the Hilton world, we have just launched something, the Wedding Diaries by Hilton, and we have introduced a concierge services for doing the RSVP on behalf of the guest. So I would rather have the bands and the barats and the ghoris as a going the extra mile, or maybe an ingredient in the menu, and then rather than taking the fun away from the guest and the customers, or rather, like you said, to bundle them and to sell them. I would rather keep them for the guests too, and the elders and all, to enjoy their time together in deciding, in shopping, in going the customized way, so that it always remains one of the most eventful event for the couple and for everyone who's present there.
Let me slip one to the moderators, Satyajeet. Right? You're a man of many hats, right? Now the area director, of course, but then not about co-branding, but is there any learning or a case for cross-industry tie-ups to create affordable opportunities for your clients, for your customers, like tying up with ancillary industries? What all does a marriage actually require? You buy jewelry, you buy apparel, some of them, of course, get into vehicles and all, but that's more the dowry part of it. But then there are wedding planners, there are makeup artists, beauty products, and of course also honeymoon planners. So what's your view?
So Bhuvanesh, thank you for asking me that question. And as you said, turn the tables. My turn to answer the question. I think, Bhuvanesh, look, every hotel company, every hotel chain, all of my colleagues on the call, everybody works with impanel vendors. And as Joyjit very rightly said, they all have a part in society. So we all work with impanel vendors and suggest them. But what you're talking about, of course, is taking to the next level. And it's very interesting you asked that, because that is really now becoming the need of the hour. People want to go to one particular place and find all their solutions, rather than getting to multiple conversations, multiple discussions. Keeping that in mind, at IHCL, at Indian Hotels Company Limited, we actually worked on this concept and developed what we call a wedding concierge. Now, the advantage we have, the unique advantage we have in terms of in IHCL, is that we have the products and services of the entire Tata Group at our disposal. And as you all know, the Tatas have gone into certain products which are very lifestyle oriented, which are oriented to luxury. So, for example, if we talk about weddings and we talk about bridal wear, we have Taneira. We have for jewelry, we have Zoya, we have Tanishq, we have Titan. Then, of course, when we all know about cars and the aspect of Jaguar Land Rover, and then we have Tata Motors, and then of course we have luxury gifting with Tata Click. So we have this opportunity in Indian hotels to do this, and we have done that tie-up, and that helps because when we are contracting a wedding or we discussing a wedding, we have these products on offer, and thanks to the wedding concierge concept that Indian Hotels has started, and we have we have a thing called Timeless Weddings. That's our kind of focused brand name for weddings. We are able to create this one-stop shop, and also the other part of your question is about the spread of our company helps us because of the kind of multiple hotels in our portfolio. We have resorts, so you get married in a city hotel, we offer you a resort or elsewhere. For the post-wedding honeymoon, etc. So yes, it is a concept which has come into play, and it's worked well for us as a company.
Any scope of going outside the Tata basket of offerings?
Not really, because the Tata basket is big, but we almost have everything under the sun, but including aircrafts and airlines. But on a serious note, yes, there is been thought on that, and we have looked at how we partner with certain industries or organizations which are could be relevant for a wedding, for somebody planning a wedding. So we have actually actively thought of that.
And Tata salt and masalas, if you don't mind.
That goes without saying. And the sugar for making it sweeter. So I'll move on to don the other hat, back onto the other hat now. Nitesh and Norton. So I think we need two of you to answer this because it's a slightly a larger question, and it'll be good to put your thoughts together. So while we've all talked about the positives and the advantages and the great things about the Great Indian Wedding, I think that's a better way. Bhuvanesh, we should call it the Great Indian Wedding rather than the Big Fat Indian Wedding.
Yes.
So the Great Indian Wedding has many downsides. We also know that. I mean, the downsides in terms of, well, a certain amount of guilt, especially in today's world, which is a far more probably aware world, and we're more aware of various things. And from what we've seen in the recent past, the devastation that the pandemic has brought. So the guilt on the conscience, when you step out, you see people begging for food. So food wastage. Now that's one big elephant in the room, which we must talk about. When I began this show, I talked about how we have hoteliers. I think we've refocused. Well, we always focused on weddings, but now the responsible part of it is, or responsibility on our shoulders of being responsible hoteliers has come into play. So food wastage is one. Have you looked at recycling, Nitesh and Norton? What are your views on recycling, food and disposables, flower arrangements? Sorry, I'm being a little bit radical over here, but no harm in debate. This is a debate, and we should talk about these things. Can we preserve and reuse other assets? Have you done something like that? Have you looked at that as a concept? And of course, the last point is, what is the impact on the environment? As hotel companies, as general managers, have you looked at how does your hotel save up on resources which may have been overused, water, electricity, napkins, tissue papers, etc. So your thoughts, gentlemen, on these very important, I think this very important aspect of the Great Indian Wedding.
So Satyajeet, thank you. In fact, when this question came up, I was really excited because it's like a personal project, sustainability. I think besides just being cool and talking about it. So let me give you an example. A hotel this size, let's say 500 rooms and above, or our combined, I think we combined talking about close to give or take 2,500 rooms amongst all of us, just on the screen here. We would be consuming upwards of, my rough estimate, close to, let's say, 2 million glass or plastic bottles across our hotels, easy, right? And all it takes is to set up our own in-house glass bottling plant. I've got a bottle here. In fact, that's the kind of water we use all across the hotel. This is something we did about 3 years back. And ever since we've done this, we're saving on average about 25 lakh plastic bottles a year. That's straight away missing from going into the garbage dumps. I ride motorcycles. So if you go behind Gurgaon, there's actually a place called Khushbu Chowk. And it's called Khushbu because of bad smell. It smells so much, but it's actually on Google. And we as a community have accepted that we're going to live with garbage and trash. And hotels as icons of lifestyle in the societies we work in, I think it's a very heavy responsibility on us that we start making changes. When we made this change as part of Marriott International's Serve 360 campaign, we had a lot of eyebrows went up. But I'll be honest, every single guest came back and said, great idea, but I hope the water's good. So Wonderful. As long as the water's tested and happy, everything is fine. True. Same thing next week, kind of experimenting with it, is imagine the amount of shampoo bottles, etc., that we use in our rooms. So we're coming up with something on that soon enough. Weddings, like we all know, it's a once in a lifetime sort of affair. So guests tend to kind of take out all the drops. I have a good mind of having some conversation with guests that listen, what about all those fancy wedding cards that are printed? There are companies which depend on that. And the wedding card, you open it, you have the sweets and throw the box, right? So that's something which we could probably want to start with. But food wastage, I think it starts within the hotel. Give you an example. In the cafeteria, for example, we have 3 days, which are Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, which are zero wastage days. So we take the garbage bins out of the cafeteria. So you really can't throw food anymore. Right. But in the production of the kitchens, etc., the quantities are limited. We make fresh food, but there is still lots to be done. And, I think nobody wants to touch the elephant in the room with the guests. That listen, you're talking about so much wastage, but it's time we started having these conversations.
No, absolutely. I think it's very, very important.
Each other and take.
No, true, Nitesh. I think it's a great idea, and maybe we, while we have this conversation on this talk show, but it's a great idea to maybe we take this beyond this talk show, set up a think tank of general managers in Delhi, and we really do something for the environment. Great ideas, Nitesh. Sorry, Norton.
Yeah. So echoing what Nitesh just mentioned, incidentally, IG is already working on. We've already launched bulk amenities for all our hotels, and these are all brands included. We should be going live by the first week of 2020. We've all undergone the ordering phase right now. But yeah, that being said, with regards to the weddings alone, they are called the big fat Indian weddings for a reason. No matter what we do, the customer is going to ask you for that endless buffet layout.
True.
What we try to do at the hotels are we're trying to educate customers and trying to offer them a bespoke menu, which is what they want, but it looks dramatic. Because at the end of the day, the ask is more to make it look like $1 million setup. And if we manage to achieve that, half the battle is won. Incidentally, customers are beginning to understand that a majority part of that food will go to waste.
True.
And if our chefs, like we're forcing them now and we're pushing them and urging them to kind of be mindful of how they cook and the quantum they cook prior to the start of the event, and then the refill as they go forward, I think that aspect will make a huge change. Bottling, I couldn't agree more. The bottling initiative is an absolute star. One of our hotels has also, like Nitesh has said, the Crown Plaza of Greater Noida. They have piloted this project, and we're all waiting to kind of follow suit. If that pans out the way we're expecting it to, we have a winner there as well.
So, in my view, the moment we step out of the wedding, right, is when guilt takes over. When you see all those needy people stand outside, the less fortunate, and also I think the guests start indulging themselves more than they would at home, right? When they're in a hotel. The one which is coming on Thursday, and there's another one coming next Saturday. So next Thursday will be our first show in the West. And that's about the mice that escaped. And come Saturday, we have another beat series this time, the third show in the series. It's called the BWH Dialogues, where I am going to grapple with Mark Willis. He is the CEO for Accor Group for India, Middle East, Africa, Turkey. Big guy, right? So look out for this show. It's on Saturday, day after tomorrow, 5 p.m. 1 hour of grueling.
Thank you. Just picking up the thread again, moving back to you, Varun, and a slightly specific question. Over the 17 years, over the years, the contribution of the weddings, to your hotel in terms of percentage, if you mind my asking that, how has that grown? How much of it has been a contribution to your hotel in terms of percentage, and the comeback of the second wave? How much have you seen the comeback?
The comeback has been amazing, actually, Satyajeet, and I think the percentages have become even more healthy for the reason that the overall bucket has shrunk. So, for my hotel in Gurgaon, which is typically a business hotel, with Cybercity, not fully alive, I think our dependence and our celebration from the weddings is much higher. So from our catering perspective, which is a large part of our business, we are doing about 68 to 72% of our revenues from weddings and celebrations, wedding related celebrations, and within the rooms as well. In the wedding related months, about 30 to 35% of overall revenues coming from there. In the other hotel in Delhi, which is also a large hotel, 500-room hotel, we see a similar trend. But because it is also a convention hotel and conventions are slightly slow right now, so weddings are even more important. So there, the contribution of social celebrations, weddings is upwards of 60 to 65% in terms of catering revenue. So really, really healthy numbers.
Puneet, as we said, there are many parts of the wedding, of the Indian wedding, and there are, of course, complications. For example, the bride side will hold the main wedding function, and the groom side will hold the post-wedding function, obviously, and the venues will be maybe different, suiting the various budgets and the various size of the wallet. Is there a case on offer to you to host all functions together, making it more affordable? What we're trying to say is different price points. It's a difficult one. Have you ever done that? Have you ever come across some kind of situation like this?
Yeah, sure. So, firstly, the Great Indian Weddings are a great wealth equator in the society. So, giving consolidated packages should be discouraged, but yeah, the times are such that we have to do it. So what we are witnessing currently is a paradigm shift in the way people have been looking at the Indian weddings, where prior to COVID, couples, families had a special fascination towards leisure destinations. This COVID period has made them realize that such weddings can happen within the comfort of their own cities, where they not only benefit financially, it also saves them from the travel woes during this pandemic period, but also get the same luxury experience what they desired for. So we've done residential weddings where both the parties have come together to host the events under one roof and have come to an understanding on sharing the financial expenses, with the overall guest list getting very consolidated to small numbers with only selective family and friends. So this seems to have worked perfectly for both the families. In fact, we have multiple halls taking advantage. The groom's bride sides have selected different venues to host their functions. This allows them to enjoy different themes, menus within one roof within the hotel. So if I talk about how many we have done in this year, 2021, till date, we've done about 11 such residential weddings where both the groom and the bride side have conducted their weddings in the hotel here, which is a very good, because if I compare to earlier years, there is a rise of about 22% over 2019. Earlier, only the groom or the bride would take the hotel. But if I see my 2019 year, we've done exceedingly well in terms of having a higher incremental 22%.
Thank you, Puneet. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Coming back to you, Rajesh, the big fat weddings, as we said, do not come cheap, yet they have to happen. And that's good news for all of us. Sometimes five-stars scare families away. This is something we discussed about how we have this competition coming up as hotels and hoteliers, where alternate venues like banquet halls, farmhouses are obviously have been popular and are getting more popular. In sync with the previous question, when we talk of making weddings more affordable as a kind of a peg to continue for them to happen in hotels, this is a radical one. Have you ever thought of tying up with banks, financial institutions, create an interest-free EMI plan, for example? Sometimes, especially in the context of the current pandemic, the way the financial impact has been on families and human beings. Have you ever thought of this as an option where we could look at an EMI concept or tying up with financial institutions for weddings? Very radical, not been thought of before, I believe. Your views, Rajesh.
So I honestly never thought about it, but yes, when this whole forum and I became a panelist on this, I did a little bit of study, and I actually found out that close to about 25% of the over middle class move their wedding dates to the easier dates, and more than 49% of the weddings actually got postponed indefinitely. And this is on economic times, primarily due to the shortage of funds. And even if there were these small little gatherings, it was more very intimate, just like the first families coming in and going out, and that's how it was. Having said that, sir, the idea of an EMI, I'm not sure how the bank is going to be responding to it. But having said that, yes, as hoteliers, as long as we have the bank have a bank guarantee, we probably can try and take that risk of requesting the hosts to pay up.
No, so Rajesh, I think sorry to interrupt. The question stems from the fact that, a few years ago, let's say 10, 15, and 20 years ago, one would never have thought of buying a Mercedes S-Class or a certain consumer durable or a holiday on an EMI or an airline ticket on an EMI. Today, those things have started happening. So we have never thought of this as hoteliers. Now, with the times we live in, calls for flexibility, adaptation, innovation. So that's where this question is coming from. So as I said, it's not been thought of before, probably.
It has not been thought before, and I don't know. I mean, if you actually look at it from the banking perspective, it is more like a celebration, and it would probably end up into a personal loan slot where the interests are not going to be pocket friendly. True. So it's not going to be something like a housing loan or or anything else where, it's the interests are going to be
True.
easy.
If I may just come in, few years ago when this started in durables, the interest rates were very high. Now that everybody's offering it, so the competitive pressures have brought down the interest rates. So if one is going to start, I must tell you, it'll set a trend.
Yeah, the only concern in this is like Norton and Nitesh also mentioned the kind of spend that we have from each one of these big fat weddings. I mean, having been in Udaipur for 5 years and having seen what happens to the city in general after one big fat wedding, where the total spend goes up to more than 250 to 300 CR per wedding. If you actually look at that, and then you see another wedding where the man doesn't have the money but has to get someone married, the bank might say yes, but why go to a Lodhi? Why do you want to get married in a Lodhi?
So the ones who do the 250 crore wedding do not need a loan. It's those guys who do the 30, 40, 50 lakh one.
Precisely the point. But everybody is usually put under the same bucket, like what's happening in Delhi today with regards to the spa.
Moving on to Joyjit, the last question for the evening, Joyjit, is if this is such a big industry, if this is such a big entity, is there a case for a loyalty and a referral program related specifically for weddings? You host one, we incentivize you for the next, for example, stuff like that. Any thoughts on that, Joyjit?
I mean, so first of all, thank you for the question. Today in the evening, when beginning of a discussion, Nitesh was talking about Panditjis. What was coming to my mind was referral business, repeat business. And we all thrive on this, isn't it? I mean, tell me one industry which doesn't want repeat business to come in. So I think in general, all hotels or most hotels have their own loyalty and referral programs in different forms and formats. And, it can be in a way of giving up a couple of F&B vouchers, complimentary rooms, or maybe spa tickets, something or the other, and there are, but however, I would always say to be a little bit mindful when you have a cash incentive kind of stuff, or maybe have a watchful eye on direct booking, going to the influencer to get those discounts or incentives there. Well, I mean, in our Hilton world, Hilton Honors is something which we give, which is driving the loyalty and referral factor for all of us. And we do have H Honors bonus points to the wedding planners. So if somebody is hosting, or an event planner or a wedding planner hosting a wedding in the hotel, definitely gets points on the rooms and F&B spends. And we also have something called wedding incentive points to the family who is doing
that's
in the hotel.
Okay.
Yes.
So you already kind of explored that as an option.
Yes. And they can use these points earned to anywhere in the world.
Great.
Whether it is for leisure or holidays, or maybe even when they are planning for their next event in the same hotel, they can use those points. So I mean, absolutely, I'm totally in for it. And I guess all of us are fighting on this.
Thank you, Joyjit. So thank you all, gentlemen. You've shared some very interesting insights, and you've been very, very, I must say, forthright and forthcoming with your views. And I'd like to thank you for that. To sum up, I think this is a very important segment. This is an extremely important revenue generating lever we all have in our hands. The times have changed. We have to now look at it with various lenses. But of course, weddings continue to generate employment. They're good for society. They're good for the city. They're good for people around. They bring positive emotions most of the time. There is something which we have discussed today, and I think one actionable takeaway from this is how do we focus on the sustainable part of it, ensure that weddings, there is also that angle. Safety is the second most important, I think, takeaway from this discussion. And of course, the third takeaway is that the significant revenues that the wedding segment generates is here to stay, and we're all happy to see it grow. Just two very happy statistics to end with. Pan India in 2021, this wedding season is going to generate close to 3 lakh crore worth of business. So those are the numbers we're talking of. That's as for the Confederation of All India Traders. And around 25 lakh weddings are expected to be solemnized in the next 30 days, gentlemen. So between now and the 15th of December, we're looking at 25 lakh weddings across the country, revenue of 3 lakh crore, and more than 1.5 lakh weddings expected to take place in this season, which are going to get in Delhi city, 50,000 crores. So it's a no-brainer. We love them. They're happy to stay. And I think one takeaway I forgot to mention from this panel discussion is after this, a lot of hotels going to open a new consultant division called Panditji. And I think a lot of Panditjis are going to be consultants as a new department in hotels. But I think, no, thank you all for your thoughts. It was wonderful conversing with all of you this evening. And let's continue to marry people and make them happy.
So this has been a great session. And I'm sure all of you will agree with me that Satyajeet has been 10 on 10 with his moderation. Absolutely, hand on heart, 10 on 10, right? I give it to you. And Satyajeet. So that's another career alternation, right? So you can, you know what?
Well, if one is an elder hotelier, then yes, career options, one is coming close to looking at career options.
Yeah, but you're a bit away. Having said that, big fat Indian weddings, like you said, great Indian weddings is more like it. They are there, but how do we make a case for healthy, good Indian weddings is the moot point, right? There is a revenue to be made, fair enough, but then we shouldn't put pressure on everybody. Now, coming back to the show, why the GM shows? This struck me sometime in April during the lockdown, that who are the ones who are going to carry forward the torch of the industry after the current generation hands over charge. It's the general managers. The leaders are going to come out of you all. You people are going to hold the baton and take the industry ahead. I did tell something to Nitesh, which he should always remember, right? He'll smile. He remembers I'm watching. Yeah, you guys are the ones. So very soon we'll see CXOs coming out of your stock. And also it's upon you to build future general managers and future CXOs from the ranks under you.